I was very excited to see the previous two presentations dealing with geographical information. And I'll continue speaking today about geographical information. My name is Dan Gildoni, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Placense. And we will help you better understand your market, your competitors, and your customers. We are also a market intelligence platform with some interesting investors. One of them is Nielsen, the research company, and the second one is Energy. Before I deep dive, a few words about my background. So I come with background as a serial entrepreneur in the digital world. And the one very interesting about the digital world is the ability to understand at every given moment what the users are doing, and we have the ability to adapt accordingly. So with Placense, as we've seen previously, but here with the goal is to bring the ability to understand people's behavior, to understand the people pretty much everywhere, and give insights for any type of business which is relying on physical foot traffic. So a lot of retail-oriented malls, stores, supermarkets, but also outdoor advertising, general commercial real estate, arenas, high streets, etc. And it seems that up to now, before all of this GIS data came in, the majority of the data that was used to make decisions and to better understand how people actually behave and how they come to a location, a lot of it was based on gut feelings, some based on surveys. We've seen telecommunication data, actually telcos that are providing data based on triangulation of cell towers, which caused some accuracy problems, being able to determine an accuracy of about 300 meters and not granular enough. But overall, still one of the most common practices today to understand your customers, to understand your competition, to understand the surrounding area is by reaching out to surveys, by reaching out to people like this that would stand on a street corner and actually count the people. And then we see, by the way, census data can be brought this way as well. And there are many platforms today that aggregate this data and bring it together. But we believe that most importantly is the source of the data. And that's where we differentiate. So it feels now, as the last three presentations are trying to answer an investor with the question, how do you differentiate from? But we do see some very distinct differentiations here between the three companies. And I guess the source of the data is one of them. So our source of the data comes from the special sensor that we all have in our pockets. We connect to these devices. And this astonishing number that you currently see is the number of devices, for example, that we're connected to in Germany. So we're currently looking at about 30 million devices, giving us the ability to look at any address at any location and determine user flows, people's behaviors, etc. Now, before you creep out and start turning off your cell phones asking, how dare we do this? Let me explain what we do and why there is no reason whatsoever to turn off your phones. So the way we reach this data is by partnering up with app developers. We reach out to apps that are already installed on phones, weather apps, parking apps, navigation apps, apps that have a legitimate reason to use GPS. Up to now, all of the apps were monetizing on data mainly for advertising purposes, being a position where you would go next to a McDonald's, for example, and get notified, hey, welcome to a McDonald's, come and buy a Big Mac. And these kind of geo-fencing marketing solutions are what created the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe and became a huge opportunity for Placense. So we are fully compliant with GDPR and much more than that I'll explain in a second how. But important to say that we are not a marketing solution. We do not target individuals. More than that, we found a way to completely sterilize the data to make it impossible to understand who the individuals are. And all that we're interested in is the statistical information and the feature vectors that we're creating out of the entire population. So if we look at this image or these images as an example for a piece of data, and what I'm doing now is just giving the essence of the privacy side and why there is, or how we found a way to actually utilize the power of cell phones. So we understand that just taking these pieces of data, aggregating and anonymizing them is actually not enough. The reason for that is that there are many solutions out there that can linkage attack and understand and hack the information to get the understanding back of aggregated data. With that, we created an algorithm that we call contextual privacy. And with contextual privacy, we learn how to completely sterilize the data. So because we're not interested in the individuals, we can change the information in such a way that it will not harm the statistical accuracy, and we will get a very accurate statistical image, but there will be no ability to understand who the individuals are. So before deep diving and showing you what we actually bring and the power of this data, I'll do a very short recap. We get explicit consent to our data from the users via the app developers. We build with that a very robust panel that is currently probably the largest mobile panel existing out there. These signals go into a variety of machine learning data sets that actually bring out customized insights and recommendations for our customers. So here, for example, we're looking at a mall located outside of Berlin. We're asked to look at this mall. We can look at the competitor of the mall, in this case, another mall located about 15 kilometers away. Again, because we do not need to have any kind of infrastructure in these specific locations, we can look at any location out there, compare it, and determine how user flows or how user behaviors, demographics, etc., in any location. For example, here we understand for the first time a real shopping journey or a real catchment area. How do people move? Where do they come from? Where do they live? Where do they work? Of course, this is all on a statistical information, so it looks at neighborhoods or zip codes, but in any area that has a large enough population that will not jeopardize the ability to understand who the individual is. Now we can make these comparisons side by side with an unlimited amount of competitors as well. So on one hand, we can look at two malls. On the other hand, we can look at billboards or endless billboards, or we can look at supermarkets, car dealerships, or pretty much any locations out there. Once we deep dive, we start understanding things like, for example, retention, loyalty. How often do people come back to those locations? Having the ability to differentiate between new customers, new visitors, and returning ones. We understand how long they spend in the location, being able to base or build based on that additional insights of the intent of those users. If, for example, in a retail area, a user would spend less than 15 minutes, they are probably not relevant for retail, but are maybe utilizing this area for a parking space or maybe to enter public transportation. More than that, we start understanding and analyzing the profiles. So things like, for example, the language is spoken. So in Germany, of course, predominantly German, but many other languages. And we have the ability to understand by cross-referencing with additional data sources. Things like, for example, the shopping power, genders, ages. And we created an algorithm that based on the near real-time information that we bring from every specific location, we can show trends and footfall numbers with historical information of more than a year and down to the granularity of every 2 hours, showing near real-time seasonality for pretty much any location out there. Now, one of the big problems when looking at locations is determining or differentiating between a location, an address, and the polygon. So our solution can automatically determine these polygons, understand where people came from, looking at their catchment areas, and then in the next step, also understand their exact shopping and purchasing power based on every single location. Now I'm almost running out of time. Of course, I'll be very, very happy to show you more over a chat, and I'll share my contact information in just 1 second. But before I do that, just to recap, we're looking to help in the world of real estate retailers. We're looking to help outdoor advertisement establish and understand where to put their next advertising real estate. Help anything that has to do with optimizing assets, investment, brokers, or asset managers in the real estate world, and of course in the ability or the availability or capability of understanding any type of mobility statuses and even determining where to put electric vehicle charging stations. So my name is Dan. We are Placense. It was a pleasure meeting you all. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions and meeting you for a Zoom chat.